Corners, color, edges, centering, surface, and print quality. If you are an avid card collector or even just starting in the hobby, you probably live by those words. They are, in fact, the 6 most important factors used to determine the overall condition of a trading card. And just like many collectibles, condition is extremely crucial when talking about cards, and most importantly, when talking about the value of a card. Getting a card graded is simply the process of having the card examined by a company with employees who are specially trained to evaluate a trading card's condition. After the card is examined, it is assigned a numerical grade and sealed inside a tamper-proof holder. This is known in the hobby as slabbing. Grades are most commonly assigned using 10-point or 100-point scales, with higher numbers equating to cards in better condition. The old descriptive terms are often still used as well, and though mint once described a card in perfect condition, more recent adjectives like gem mint or pristine. PSA, the largest third-party authentication company, uses a 10-point grading system and is today the most common grading service in the hobby. Card graders like the ones employed by PSA are specially trained to inspect sports cards for flaws or imperfections. They usually wear gloves to avoid doing any damage themselves, and they use powerful lights and magnifying devices to help catch things that might go unnoticed by the naked eye.
In the early days, there was no grading, so you bought a card and it was up to you or your advisor or helper to try to figure out, how good a card was. That all changed when the grading services came in. They really performed a very valuable service to the industry by providing uniform guidelines as to the various levels that cards would fall into between generally 1 and 10 for the grading services. That really provided a standardized set of criteria for people like myself to look at a card and determine both historical value and hopefully how many other similar graded cards were in the area. So the grading services began, and then the registries began after that, and that took the card industry into a whole nother level of, as I call, price increments, because it now became apparent that where your cards stood on, or your sets really stood on the registry, became an important consideration in pricing.
Back in the early 1900s, when tobacco hockey cards were first produced, Canada had a population of 7 million compared to 92 million people in the United States. This said, we can easily accept the fact that the number of hockey card sets produced in Canada was far less than the number of baseball card sets produced in the United States. Being the only major sport with baseball to produce tobacco cards, the C55, C56, C57, and C144 hockey card series and the 3 lacrosse card series have today reached a rarity degree hardly imaginable in the United States with baseball cards, making pre-war hockey card sets extremely sought after. High-end pre-war hockey cards are also a growing rarity. The value of collectibles is governed by supply and demand, and as years pass, high-grade pre-war hockey cards on the private market become extremely scarce as they are sold, lost, or simply become non-existent. The number of collectors around the world is increasing, especially in the United States, and the number of available cards is decreasing. One can accept that high-grade pre-war hockey cards must not be neglected when looking at potential collectible investments.
My best guess is that the real increment in the business has been in the very, very old cards, from the old judges from the late 1800s into the early 1900s, 1910, 1920, 1930 sets. I think have seen tremendous price appreciation over the years, and I believe that will continue because there seems to be a tremendous appetite for these old vintage cards. You know, I'm not so sure about the history that will come for the new cards. I think there are just too many new cards, and that's why I think when people collect, there seems to be a coalescence around the old cards with particular values. In other words, the biggest appreciation, as best I can tell, is certainly in the old sets, whether it's you know, baseball, hockey, basketball sets, but mostly baseball and hockey, because they were such early examples of, and the cards tend to be very beautiful in those areas, that they're the ones that have probably continued to experience increased pricing, increased appreciation over time.
Well, because of my background, I'm always trying to evaluate what's cheap and what's expensive through the financial markets and the industry. Well, the grading has had a huge impact, because now, for example, because up to a point, a raw card is very subjective. And if you could see a card that you think is near mint, I could see that card as maybe being potential near mint to mint. And so when it comes to put data on that card that we're talking about, it's very tough to exactly know what it is. Now with the graded market, the fact now that we have auction houses, that we have eBay, and that there's trade points. So an 8 trades at that point, 6 trades at that point, and the fact that it trades on a daily basis or on a quarterly basis or monthly basis through auction houses, we actually starting to have data points on any card that exists that are graded.
Graded cards can be seen as an alternative form of investment, and unlike other alternative collectible investments such as art and stamps, the value of graded cards can be determined quite easily by comparing data points of last sales. A graded card might not be a true commodity, but it is still closer to that than most of all other forms of collectibles. One's Howie Morenz rookie card graded 8 out of 10 by PSA will be almost exactly the same as another's Howie Morenz rookie card graded 8 out of 10 by PSA. This said, it is way easier to compare PSA graded cards with traditional forms of investment or commodities. Graded cards also offer protection against two of most collectibles' enemies, wear and counterfeiting. The card's sealed, tamper-proof plastic holder protects it and also facilitates storage. Whether you buy trading cards as an investment or for collecting purposes, one thing is for sure: pre-war trading cards have an amazing ability to carry the history of sports over the years. Designed by a tobacco or candy company in a time when everything was done by hand, these little beauties were in most cases handled by the hands and fingers of collectors for over 100 years. Cornerstones of the sports collecting hobby, trading cards are still one of the most popular collectibles and will remain so for many years to come.